Welcome to the Big Sky Astrology Podcast with your host, astrologer and author, April Elliott Kent.
Hello, invisible friend. April here, and the date today is September 8th, 2025. Welcome to episode 311 of the Big Sky Astrology Podcast. Before we get going with this week's episode, I am happy to report that the 6th annual Big Sky Astrology Podathon has been a terrific success. Thank you all so much for your donations and support. If you missed any of last week's daily episodes, I really encourage you to go back and catch the 5 wonderful interviews with my colleagues about their astrological specialties. I learned so much. And if you haven't donated and still would like to be included in tomorrow's drawing for the chance to win a reading or a report, just donate $25 or more or become a monthly contributor no later than 11:59 p.m. Pacific Time this evening at bigskyastropod.com. The drawing will be held tomorrow, and winners will be notified by email in the next couple of days. In this week between eclipses, Mercury and the Sun meet in a conjunction and Cazimi period. Mercury and the Sun also connect in an opposition with the lunar nodes and a sextile with Jupiter, pushing us toward the North Node's forgiving nature in Pisces and Jupiter's fortunate openings. The Gemini Last Quarter Moon do-si-dos toward better communication as we approach next week's solar eclipse. And I replay an appropriate listener question about the week between eclipses. What should we focus on at this time? And what is the meaning for people who are born between eclipses? This week brings a powerful pair of oppositions to the North Node, that point of destiny pulling us toward new and uncharted territory. On Wednesday, September 10th at 12:20 p.m. Pacific Time, the Sun opposes the North Node at 18 degrees 20 minutes Virgo and Pisces, shining a light on a goal that may feel just out of reach. The Sabian symbols for this degree axis, 19 Virgo, a swimming race, and 19 Pisces, a master instructing his pupil, are a reminder that growth requires both effort and guidance. With the North Node in Pisces, the invitation is to lean into compassion, forgiveness, a release of harsh judgments, including that nagging need to feel perfect. Instead, recommit yourself to even the smallest step toward the thing that matters the most. Then on Thursday, September 11th at 6:59 p.m. Pacific Time, Mercury makes the same opposition to the North Node, offering flashes of insight and fresh information that can show us how to reach those long-held desires. Pay attention to a chance comment, a phrase you overhear, some kind of intuitive nudge that could spark your urge to grab for the brass ring. And remember, Mercury moves really quickly, so be ready to act while the inspiration is fresh. On Friday, September 12th, look for a double dose of optimism and opportunity as both the Sun and Mercury make sextile aspects to Jupiter. The Sun makes its sextile at 12:30 a.m. Pacific Time at 19 degrees 48 minutes Virgo and Cancer, and Mercury follows suit that afternoon at 2:53 p.m. Pacific time at those same degrees. When we have easy aspects to Jupiter, like the sextile, there tend to be good openings, sometimes seemingly out of nowhere. And these kinds of aspects encourage us to put ourselves forward and to be paying attention so we can take advantage of opportunities that come our way. Whatever we share with others on this day has an excellent chance of being well received. And that is whether it's a creative project, an idea, or just your enthusiasm for something. The Sabian symbols for this pair are 20 degrees Virgo, an automobile caravan for the sun in Virgo, and for Jupiter, 20 Cancer, gondoliers in a serenade. And they both speak to the power of moving together toward a shared goal and the joy of expressing your emotions in a way that is supported and celebrated. So this is a fantastic day to enjoy yourself, to explore your creativity, and to step toward those North Node goals that we were talking about earlier. With Jupiter in the mix, it is easier than usual to get what you want. But as always with Jupiter, there's also a caution not to overdo it. Jupiter can really amplify confidence and luck where we need it most. But in areas where we are already strong, Jupiter can tempt us to excess. Fortunately, the sun in Virgo helps keep egos in check and remind us to share the spotlight with others. A few hours after the sun and Jupiter's fortunate meeting, Mercury comes along and brings clarity about how to keep the good momentum going. This is a really great transit for articulating your beliefs and dreams for the future. And with Mercury at home in its own sign of Virgo and Jupiter exalted in Cancer, the planetary support for anything you have in mind is pretty strong. Just remember, Mercury-Jupiter aspects can sometimes make us cherry pick the facts that fit what we already believe. So to make the most of this time, write down your insights, dreams, and inspirations. You may find that even after you have looked over them carefully, they are the seeds of something wonderful. Early on Saturday, September 13th at 3:52 a.m. Pacific Time, Mercury meets the Sun in a conjunction at 20 degrees 54 minutes Virgo, bringing a potent Cazimi moment. If you need a refresher on what Cazimi means, check out the listener question from episode 259. But in short, a planet is described as being in the heart of the Sun, which is what Cazimi means, when it's within 17 minutes of arc of an exact conjunction. In this case, this Cazimi period is between Friday evening, September 12th at 8:18 p.m. through Saturday morning at 11:28 a.m. Pacific Time. These Cazimi periods are times of clarity and insight. And this one is especially powerful because Mercury not only rules Virgo, but is also considered exalted in this sign by some astrologers. Add to that the fact that we are in between eclipses and that this Cazimi conjunction falls close to the South Node, and the potential for a breakthrough in understanding is particularly high. I love the Sabian symbol for the degree of this conjunction. It's 21 Virgo, a girls' basketball team. It emphasizes collective forces, setting aside individual competition in favor of working together toward a shared vision. So take a moment maybe to tune into this Cazimi with a short meditation, especially focused on the Virgo themes of service, humility, and care. Ask yourself, how can I better serve the greater good? And how can I work together with others to accomplish that? Because this particular Cazimi period offers a beautiful chance to align personal insights with collective purpose. And now it's time for the moon report. And we begin, as always, with the week's major lunation, which this week is the Gemini Last Quarter Moon on Sunday, September 14th at 3:33 a.m. Pacific Time. That's at 21 degrees 52 minutes, Gemini and Virgo. The last quarter moon is on the Sabian symbol 22 Gemini, a barn dance. And it says there is a lot of maneuvering that we will need to do and compromise with others in order to complete our goals for this first Virgo new moon cycle. This last quarter moon is the time to make a final push toward the goals that you may have set for yourself back at that Virgo new moon on August 22nd, the first of two Virgo new moons. Because just as a reminder, there is another Virgo new moon coming on September 21st at 29 degrees Virgo. And this one is a partial solar eclipse. So we're right in the thick of eclipse season. And that can be a time of sudden changes and generally of tension. This is a last quarter moon that specifically highlights communication because it is in Gemini. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is making that conjunction with the sun. And when that conjunction is not exact, when it's not exactly at the point of Cazimi, where it really comes into its own, it can mean that Mercury is suffering a little bit and that misunderstandings and agreements are possible. Now, the moon is approaching a trine to Mars in Libra at this last quarter, and that says pause before you speak and choose your words carefully. At the same time, the last quarter moon is applying to a sextile to Venus in Leo, and that brings some creative and affectionate flavor, encouraging us to say or do things that build beauty and harmony. Gemini and Virgo, the sun and moon signs here, are both ruled by Mercury. And under this last quarter moon, the words that we choose really matter. So think of this as a time to practice honesty and also artistry in how you express yourself. It's like this little checkpoint on the road between last week's lunar eclipse in Pisces and next week's solar eclipse in Virgo. It's an opportunity to clear up confusion, refine our intentions, and prepare for the big reset at the solar eclipse. This is the last quarter in a lunar phase family cycle that began with a new moon on June 17th, 2023 at 26 degrees 43 minutes Gemini. 9 months later, at a first quarter moon on March 16th, 2024 at 27 degrees 3 minutes Gemini, there would have been some kind of opportunity or invitation for taking definitive action towards something that we were thinking about or formulating at that new moon. Something of the nature of Gemini. It could have had something to do with writing or travel or communications with people close to you. 9 months after that first quarter, came a full moon on December 15th, 2024 at 23 degrees 52 minutes Gemini. And there was our opportunity to see how we were coming along with those projects or intentions that we formulated at the new moon. And now 9 months later, we are at the last quarter and in a position to make whatever final changes or adjustments we can make to finish out this lunar phase family cycle successfully. Let's take a look at the void of course moon periods for this week. These are the periods when the moon has made its final major aspect in one sign before it moves on to the next. These are the times when unexpected things can happen, but when it can also be a positive time to create new and helpful habits. On Monday, September 8th, the moon in Pisces, following its lunar eclipse the previous day, makes a conjunction with Saturn, newly in Pisces as well, at 10:44 a.m. Pacific time. It's void of course for 53 minutes and then enters Aries at 11:37 a.m. When the moon begins void of course period on a conjunction with another planet, it is in some way assimilating the qualities of that planet. Both the full moon and Saturn in Pisces have been giving us a message about treating others with kindness. Use this void of course moon period to really get in the habit of not taking feedback personally. That's one of the downsides of that full moon with the sun in Virgo and the moon in Pisces, that feelings can really get hurt. So use this void of course moon period to focus instead on creating positive boundaries in your relationships, especially because a sensitive sign like Pisces really needs those boundaries. On Tuesday, September 9th, the moon in Aries opposes Mars at 11:53 p.m. Pacific time. Then it's void of course for 13 hours and 10 minutes before it enters Taurus on September 10th at 1:03 p.m. There's an awareness that comes with the moon in opposition to another planet. And since it's opposed Mars here, there could be an understanding about what you want versus what somebody else wants. Tempers could flare. Arguments could ensue. Use this void of course period to get in the habit of practicing diplomacy and thinking about how your actions could affect other people and especially your partner, because Mars is in Libra, a sign of close relationship. On Friday, September 12th, the moon in Taurus sextiles Saturn at 1:14 p.m. Pacific time. It's void of course for 1 hour, 24 minutes, and then enters Gemini at 2:38 p.m. A sextile from the moon to another planet usually brings an opportunity or an invitation. The moon in Taurus is in a conjunction with Uranus and Gemini during this sextile. So there could be a strong desire for freedom and independence. Saturn can represent our responsibilities to other people, as well as our boundaries, as I was saying before. This void of course moon period could present an opportunity to get in the habit of making sure you have the boundaries you need for your personal autonomy while taking care to still fulfill your obligations. And finally, on Sunday, September 14th, the moon in Gemini squares Saturn after that last quarter moon. This happens at 3:46 p.m. Pacific time, and the moon is void of course for 1 hour, 44 minutes before it enters Cancer at 5:30 p.m. Well, a square often brings conflict, and here there can be an issue between achieving your objectives and doing what some authority figure in your life wants you to do. Use this void of course moon period to get into the habit of compromising when it's necessary and setting boundaries while being respectful. And in particular, this has to do with the way you are communicating, especially with authority figures in your life. In this week's listener question, I've decided to replay a question from way back on episode 175 because it is especially apropos for this week. Listener Scout writes, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the 2 or so weeks between eclipses. What might it mean for people born in that small window? What activities should we focus on and avoid during this time? Does this window of time have a name? Without taking the eclipse zodiac signs into account, what is the template of energy between these two events like? What might someone born in the window between these eclipses have or experience that's unique? What should we do or not do during these transits? Many astrologers say don't begin anything during eclipse season, but does this in-between window count as part of the season? Thanks for an always fabulous podcast. Well, Scout, thank you for your question and for your kind words. I don't know of an official term for that 2-week period between eclipses. And the way it works is we'll have a solar eclipse, and that can be accompanied within 2 weeks either side by a lunar eclipse. So either 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after the solar eclipse. And we can only have lunar eclipses alongside a solar eclipse. You're not going to have just a lunar eclipse in an eclipse season. So I will call this 2-week period between eclipses an interregnum period when we are under the influence of 2 different eclipse regimes. One of them is solar and can be disruptive to our sense of self. The other one is lunar and can be disruptive to our sense of safety and security. If you were born during this 2-week period, you will have a prenatal eclipse that's very close to your birthday and a progressed eclipse around your 7th birthday. The prenatal eclipse point is a highly sensitive degree in the chart. It's just the point of the eclipse nearest prior your birth. If there is a degree of the zodiac that seems to respond really strongly for you, even though you don't have any planets or sensitive points at that degree, check the degree of the eclipse prior to your birth, or 2 if there were 2 of them. In secondary progressions, a day after your birth corresponds to a year. So if an eclipse occurred 7 days after your birth, it occurs in your secondary progressions 7 years after your birth. And this is often a year of big changes, sometimes on an external level, sometimes internally, sometimes both. I think a person born in that 2-week interregnum between eclipses is really saturated in the unpredictable nature of eclipses. Similarly to someone who was born on the actual day of an eclipse, we can expect a lifetime with more than the usual ups and downs. Depending on the birth chart, we might see a pattern of striving for normalcy and security, only to have them repeatedly pulled out from under you. Or someone who thrives on the unpredictability of life and really achieves extraordinary things. Would such a person be wired to do really well during that 2-week space between eclipses? Well, maybe. It's kind of like asking if people who were born when Mercury was retrograde do especially well when transiting Mercury has its retrograde periods. Anecdotally, I would say that certain things that usually cause them problems, like learning style or communication with others, might actually go more smoothly when Mercury is retrograde because the rest of the world is more or less on their wavelength. And maybe it's the same for the person born between eclipses when we reach that moment in each year's 2 eclipse seasons. They are like people who grew up right smack on an earthquake fault, and they have learned to live with this unexpected shaking at any given moment. They develop a kind of a sure-footedness, an ability to cope with the unexpected and with sudden change. So while the rest of us are caught unawares at eclipse time by all this jangly energy and the need to cope with change and things that are coming out of left field, these are the people who have already learned to shelter under a heavy piece of furniture or stand in a doorway. They're still affected, but they have coping strategies. As for not beginning anything on or between eclipses, I disagree. But then I got married right between 2 eclipses. Naturally, we've had our ups and downs, but all marriages do. We are still happily together after 30 years. A friend founded her website on the day of a solar eclipse, and it became a big success. Now, as for good things to do during this period, maybe think of them as mini Uranus transits. If something in your life has needed shaking up for a while, but it seemed too scary or you dragged your feet, well, here is the moment. The message of eclipses is just that we have taken a particular road as far as we can, and it's time to go in a new direction. Eclipses and this interregnum period between them are very powerful, and their strength and their astrology need to be respected and used consciously. So proceed with caution at these times, maybe, but by all means, proceed. Scout, thank you so much for that wonderful question. You know I love to talk about eclipses. If you want to know more about eclipses, and specifically eclipses in your own birth chart, order my Moon Shadow Eclipse Report. You can find it at my website, bigskyAstrology.com, and just click on Eclipses in the main menu bar. If you have a question that you would like me to answer on a future episode, please leave a message of 1 minute or less at speakpipe.com/bigskyAstrologypodcast. Or if you are a shy person, you can just email me at april@bigskyAstrology.com and be sure to put podcast question in the subject line. Well, that is everything on my show sheet, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you for listening to the Big Sky Astrology Podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please be sure to subscribe or follow the show in your app of choice. Leave a rating or a review, and I hope that you'll help spread the word by telling an astrology-loving friend about the podcast. You can read show notes and full transcripts and leave any comments you have about each episode at bigskyastropod.com. Another big thank you to everyone who showed support for the podcast during last week's podathon. You still have time before 11:59 p.m. this evening, September 8th, Pacific time, to make your donation and be entered in the drawing tomorrow for an opportunity to win a prize. On each episode, I thank some of my financial donors by name. This week, let's give a Big Sky Astrology podcast shout out to the very first podathon donors of this year, Stephanie Eastman and Grace Looney. Grace and Stephanie, thank you so much for listening to the podcast and for supporting the show with your donations. If you would like to support the show and receive access to my bonus video episodes for donors only, please go to bigskyastropod.com and make a contribution of $10 or more. That is it for this episode. Join me again bright and early next Monday. And until then, keep your feet on the ground and your eyes on the stars.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about April Elliott Kent, visit her website, bigskyAstrology.com, where you can sign up for her newsletter, read her thoughtful essays, find out more about her books and classes, or book a personal astrology reading. That's all for today. If you're enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to follow or subscribe to stay current with new episodes. And please leave a rating or review. You can follow Big Sky Astrology on Facebook or Twitter and Big Sky Astrology April on Instagram. Thanks again for being here, and we hope you'll join us next time.